Hi guys, Hasina here with another chat. I'm in pretty good spirits. It's like real summer. I did my hair in less than 3 hours, wash, condition, style, everything, which is a big feat if you have natural hair. So I'm very excited about that. Um, but I was just feeling overall good. I hope you are too. So today's chat, I wanted to be, well, I guess we got to get rid of the paperwork, do the digital paperwork. If you are liking these chats, please hit the like button, please subscribe. And you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, SoundCloud. So I'll have all those links below. Done with that. So, I am somewhat, I'm someone who likes to keep a high vibration, a high way of seeing the world while also being realistic. That has shifted for me. What that means has shifted for me quite a lot in the past couple of years based on just how, based on my spiritual practice. Reality is subjective. Um, that's a whole nother conversation. But being a realist just has a different kind of flair to it nowadays for me because of my spiritual practice. That being said, I still, like I said, prefer to keep my vibration high. It's good for, why wouldn't you? It's good for your health. It's good for your peace. It's good for navigating the world. Especially if you're highly sensitive or dealing with any other stuff. But something that started to get to me or it's really shifted in my belief system, different kinds of affirmations affirmations, advice, things that people have said for years over time to kind of keep people going and keeping them uplifted. And they don't, in my opinion, they don't really work anymore. They're things you say when you don't really want to acknowledge the process of being alive, being incarnated into a body, living in these times. So, and no judgment, because I have used these types of affirmations. I have used this advice. I have said this as advice for other people, and I'm growing out of it and learning that there's another way. There's a way. It's the start, but it's not the end of the journey. It's like, how people kind of nowadays hate on The Secret. To me, I don't hate The Secret. I think The Secret is dope. I think The Secret does what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to scratch the surface for you. And if you're interested, then you understand really that there's so much more, that's just the doorway to an entire another world. But I digress. So affirmation number 1, which I was probably saying up until maybe a year ago or 6 months ago, where it's don't care what anyone says. Don't care what anyone thinks. It makes sense. Ideally, you shouldn't. Because, everybody's thinking from their view, their world. So it makes sense. The problem is it's not realistic. We are creatures, we're societal creatures. We blossom in society, and even when we don't blossom in society, we need community, which means we're going to hear what people say, which means when we care about them, we're going to care about what people say. So what can we do with something that ideally makes sense, but just isn't practical? You say, yeah, you know what? You're going to care what people think. you're going to care about what people say. What you can do is make sure that you care more about what you think and more about what you say. There just needs to be some balance. And honestly, not even balance. It needs to be like 70-30. 70% what you think. 70% what you say. And I'm lowballing it. Like 70% to me is the baseline. If you have a fantastic, supportive community around you, then maybe, yeah, play around in the 70. If you don't, start raising those percentages up so that you hear your voice first. That's really what you want to do, is you want to hear your voice first. The reason why, because if you start from a place of resistance, then you're always pushing, I don't care what people say, I don't care what people say. But you can't control them saying anything. You can't control yourself hearing it. So what can you do? You can say, I hear it, but what did Hasina say? What did I say? And when you do that, you have a better chance of knowing what you say, knowing what your voice is. So you don't get confused, especially if you're empathic. I know for me, sometimes, you feel sadness, you feel pain, you hear these terrible thoughts, and they're not yours. And that's just because you're just spending too much time listening to folks' stuff. So number one, get rid of, don't care what anyone else thinks, and make it care first, care more about what you think. So that was my first one. Then this one's like a twofer. Never give up, and failure is not an option. Never give up, and failure is not an option. Well, let's do failure is not an option. Failure is not an option if you're not doing anything. If you're doing something, there's high chance that you're gonna fail. And if you're doing something worthwhile, you're gonna fail. You're gonna fucking fail. And you gotta get comfortable with it so that you can use it. You can use it. So you can say, okay, this didn't work. Why didn't this work? What do I need to do to make it work? That way you get closer to the thing you really want to be doing. And this one was it's a big thing for me. I'm like a recovering perfectionist addict. Not being perfect was really, really hard for me to cope with. From childhood, everything that I wanted to do, I wanted it to be perfect. I didn't want the part of the process where you're learning and figuring it out. I wanted it to be immediately, it's perfect. Because I didn't want to experience the disappointment. I didn't want to experience the criticism, and there's just so much ego there. I didn't want to appear as if I didn't have it together. And that shit is stifling. So stifling. Because then there's shit you don't try out. There's shit you don't experience because you want it to be perfect. So you definitely, if you want to live a life that's worthy, get comfortable with failing. So failure is actually definitely an option, and it's going to happen. It's an expectation. And get comfortable with that expectation. Now, never give up. You have to give things up in all sense of the word to know what really belongs to you. I mean, we could take it to another level. Nothing belongs to anyone. And that's how you'll be most at peace. But that's another video. Be willing to give something up. And the way that you're able to do that is realizing just how impermanent this life is. I mean, I can get a little morbid for you, but at one point or another, at some point in your life, you're going to give yourself up, and you're going to transform into another thing, and leave and exit and go onto the ether, you know. And you have to have peace with that. And if you can have peace with that, I mean, you have to. If you can have peace with that, you can give up some things to find out if you even need it. Sometimes you just need a break from the thing to remember how much the thing is a part of you, how necessary it is in your life, how much joy it brings to you. So definitely, you don't have to, we have to remember sometimes that we don't have to constantly be in struggle. And if we are, we need to reevaluate that. And sometimes that's just a break. Sometimes the break is only a few weeks. Sometimes the break is a few years. But it's worth it, so you can know who you are. When you're forcing yourself into something, that's not you, because you wouldn't be forced. You would just be you. You would just be. So that one. And then the final one I want to state, it's going to sound like I'm like full of shit for this one, because I do really I'm trying to actually get rid of that language, but try to be more positive. I don't necessarily think you need to give that all the way up, but the understanding that, again, that it just shouldn't be a struggle. That you want to always remain positive, but in order to get to the positivity, you have to go through the thing. So right now, that's not where you're at. You got to be where you're at. On top of that, it may be time for us to leave the idea of positivity and negativity, because there's too much duality in that, and there's too much judgment in that. It's so subjective. We determine what is positive and what is negative. It may be better to think of it more vibrationally. Not like, I'm going to be positive today, but instead I'm just going to be and watch and see and adjust accordingly, and see how that thing feels to me versus that thing versus the next thing versus I'm going to be positive. Because anything that's a battle in you is not positive. It's not peace. It's not ease. It's not high vibration. And you want to be as high as possible. And being as high as possible is through the thing. So yeah. Some of these affirmations, some of these pieces of advice that have been passed along and passed along and passed along, they gotta go so we can really live, and so we can have the joyous experiences we truly want to have, so we can use pieces of advice that acknowledge the type of environments we're existing in right now. So we're not just kind of like sloganizing, I don't know if that's a word, but hey, you gotta be positive. Okay, but are we acknowledging the environment that we're talking in? When there's fires in the forest because of climate change, you don't tell the trees to be positive. They have to go through it. And hopefully, going through it, they will heal and become better. So those are my thoughts. I would love for you to share with me some affirmations, some pieces of advice that you'd like to give up, and what you would like to replace it with. I'd love, love, love to hear it. So That's it. Have a fantastic week. Have fun. Have joy. I will talk to you soon. Be blessed. One love.